ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां हयग्रीवमुपास्महे। ॐ श्री हयग्रीवाय नमः। ॐ श्री वल्लभा समेत श्री महागणाधिपतये नमः। So we were on the topic chaitanyasya svaprakAshatva-upapattih tatra rAmAnuja-mata-khandanam cha. This is the topic we were in. In this we were discussing about the definition we have given to svaprakAshatva. Okay. So our Bellankonda Ramaraya Kavi has given a particular definition of what is this svaprakAshatva. And the Purva Pakshi is challenging that. And in this context, what is Anubhava is also discussed here. In fact, they want to make this svaprakAshatva as a dharma of the Vastu. Okay, because they are always talking about dharma, dharmi, bhava. That is the Vishishta concept they have. So they are not able to understand a Vastu which is nirdharmaka. So this Anubhava, when we say, how can there be any Anubhava which is also nirdharmaka or nirvikalpa Vastu and all we are talking about? That is Anubhava Swarupa. So they are asking, what is this Lakshana of this Anubhava? Then Bellangonda goes into the concept of whether you are asking the Swarupa Lakshana or Tatastha Lakshana. Okay. And so generally the Tatastha Lakshana is what is given even in the Brahma Sutra, correct? As Brahma Lakshana. The Swarupa is Nirdharmaka only. That is Paramartha Satya. Only in the Vyavahara we are giving Lakshana, which is Saguna, but which is again the Vachyartha is Saguna, but it is again the Lakshya is the Nirguna Vastu. That's what we have to understand here. So in this, we have to understand that whatever we are saying, this they are not able to get it, really speaking. So they are saying this nirdharmakatvam you are saying, we cannot accept because we say that there is a swayam prakashatva dharma, he says. Okay, you can see here swayam prakashatva rupaha dharmaha asti iti katham nirdharmakatvam anubhavasya. So how can this anubhava or Brahman itself is called anubhava, correct? Anubhava swarupa. How can it be nirdharmaka? When we ask whether you are asking it, this nirdharmakatvam, when you say it is vyavaharataha itself, it is not there or it is not there, paramartha or vastutaha. Now, when we say vastutaha, we don't even have to say it is nirdharmaka because there is no dvaita itself. Within the dvaita vyavahara only we are talking about whether there is dharma or not, etc. Okay. And if dvaita is there, then the anubhava can have swayam prakashatva. You can take it as a dharma. Okay. So, in the Vyavahara, we also accept Sadharmatva Anubhavasya Kalpita. But that Sadharmatvam is Kalpita So, in Vyavahara, we accept what you say, but Paramarthika Satyam means it is. In fact, we don't even have to call it Nirdharmaka because there is no Dvaita itself. So, again, once we say this, they are not happy with the. I told you that Vellamkonda gave a definition of Swayam Prakashatva, correct? So, what is that? Ananya avabhasyatve sati swa itara sarva avabhasakatvam. That is how we gave. Ananya avabhasyatve means what? It is not cognized by anything else. Okay, it cannot be shined upon by anything else, but it shines on everything else, including itself. Swa itara sarva avabhasakatvam. Ananya avabhasyatve sati. Also, we have to add. So, this is the Swayam Prakashatvam definition he gave, Vellangonda gave. That is not proper, he is saying, because he is saying the Anubhava cannot have Sarva Avabhasakatva. Okay. So it cannot shine on everything. Okay. Because it cannot generate this Avabhasa Janakatvam is not there. Because this Avabhasa, whatever we say, is nothing but Sarva Anubhava. And Sarva Anubhava Janakatvam cannot be there for Anubhava itself, like this he is saying. Anubhava itself, because for him Avabhasa and Anubhava are not different. And Anubhava cannot generate itself. That is a problem. That is what one of the arguments they are making means. Then we say what? We say that the Nirvikalpaka Jnanam, Savikalpaka Jnanam, like that we differentiate. This Chaitanya Shabda Vachyam or even Jnanam, when we say in general, Jnanam as Jnapti, correct? Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. When we use Jnanam as a Lakshana for Brahman, what we are referring to is the Nirvikalpaka Jnanam, which is always there, which is not which cannot be Janya, correct? It cannot be born or created or anything. What we say as Janakatvam and Janyatvam and all that is all only with reference to the Savikalpaka Jnanam, which is Vritti Jnanam, we say, correct? So once we say that the Vritti Jnanam, there is Janakatvam is there for that, and Janyatvam also, it is born, and it also by its very birth, it also lights up the Vishaya, correct? So when we say this what, then they ask, what is this Vritti? You say, whatever you are calling as Vritti, what is this? Is it, it is Chaitanyam itself, or it is something other than Chaitanya? If you say it is other than Chaitanya, it will become Jada. You cannot call it Jnanam. If it is Chaitanyam itself, it cannot be born and all that, correct? That will also be a problem. And there is nothing, third option also is not there for you. You cannot say it is something other than both Chaitanya and Vritti. Like this, they are raising a objection. So for this only, finally, I think this is up to this we saw in the previous class. We say that this, whatever we say Vritti Jnana, is neither Vritti in our Chaitanyam, but it is Vritti Pratipalita Chaitanya, correct? Or Vritti Avachinna Chaitanyam is what is called Vritti Jnanam. It is neither Chaitanyam by itself nor Vritti by itself. Okay. So it is, of course, in different prakriyas, we use different words. We call it Chidabhasa, or Chit Pratibimba, and all that. Okay. Or Chit Pratipalita. These are all the words used in the Shastra for teaching purposes. Depending on what prakriya is used for teaching. But the idea is that the consciousness which is reflected or conditioned by the vritti itself is the vritti jnanam, and this conditioned jnanam only can be many, correct? The pratibimba can be many. The bimba is only one. The pratibimba is many because depending on the upadhi, there can be many pratibimbas or many abhasas. So based on this only we are talking about that the Bimba is the one which is the Janaka of all the Chidabhasa. Correct? Without the Bimba, there cannot be any Pratibimba. And without that Chidabhasa also, there cannot be any Pratiti itself. So the Pratiti Vishayatvam, we say Bhati, see something is, I know something, correct? I cognize something, something shines to me, something becomes evident to me. All these things only is Pratiti Vishayatvam. That is happening for the Vishaya because of the Chidabhasa, and the Chidabhasa itself is there because of the Chit, which is the Bimba. So in this way, the Anubhava, which is Nirvikalpaka Jnanam, becomes the Sarva Avabhasya. It lights up everything. Okay. So this Jada, which is Antakarana, without the Chidabhasa pervading it, this Antakarana cannot cognize anything. Okay, it cannot become a cognizer. Therefore, what? This Anubhava or Jnanam, Nyaptihi. So it is lighting up everything through the Chidabhasa. And because of that, everything becomes known to you, becomes evident to you, and everything has Pratiti Vishayatvam. So it generates the Pratiti Vishayatvam for everything. That is how whatever we have said is correct. You cannot say that Anubhava cannot generate Pratiti Vishayatvam for everything. It is there. In fact, it is said in Gita in so many words, correct? Yata prakashayat ekaha kritsnam lokam imam ravihi and all. We give that, Bhagavan himself gives that analogy of sun. So like this, Kshetram Kshetri Tata Kritsnam Prakashayati. So that is there in the Gita, but even though it is there, I don't know how they are actually opposing this. So once we say this, now he is still not happy. Okay, so he is continuing. He is saying, Nanu Bhati iti pratitirihi eva anubhavaha tad atirikta anubhava abhava. So what they are saying is, you are talking about a pratiti vishayatvam, as though they are all separate from Anubhava. And you are saying Anubhava is the one which generates this Pratiti and Pratiti Vishayatvam in the Vishaya. This is not correct. Whatever Bhati, if something becomes evident to me, that itself is the Anubhava. You cannot separate this cognition and experience, let us say in English if we want to use. So the word Anubhava we are using here technically. See, sometimes we can use, or many times we use in language, even in Samskrita, Anubhava, the word can be used for Pratiti. Okay. Particularly the Pratiksha. Pratiksha Pratiti is called as Anubhava. So they are only going up to that level. Okay. So he is saying, he is raising an objection here saying, how can you say this cognition and experience are different? Pratiti and Anubhava are different. There is nothing different from cognition as experience or Anubhava. Okay. Pratiti is different, Anubhava is different. We cannot say like that. If you say that, what Vellangonda doesn't agree, he says, iti chet ma evam, it's not like that. Why? Pratiti atirikta anubhava sattva. Because we have to say that Anubhava is something different from the cognition itself. So for that, how we define cognition and all, we have to see again. So he will make it even more clear now. So he is saying, Chakshusha hi ghatam sakshat kritya Purushaha pratyeti gataha asti bhati cha iti. So he is saying the sakshatkara, whatever the word is used here, is anubhava basically. So you experience the pot through your eyes. Okay, or the pot becomes evident, and then only there is a vyavahara. So the vyavahara is what is he calls as pratiti. So he says, I know. So once you say I know, So pot is, I know this pot. These two things, correct? Gataha asti is pot is. Then Purusha pratyeti is, I know this pot. These two things happen only after the Gata Anubhava. So Anubhava is separate. The pratiti, where there is a certain spuranam, correct? That pot is, and I know this pot and all this. That is different. That is what is called pratiti by me. Anubhava is different. So, this being the case, what tathacha, gata sakshat, that gata sakshatkara anubhavad anya eva pratitihi anubhavajanya iti. So, what we say is the gata sakshatkara through the indriyartha sannikarsha is there. In fact, the sakshatkara itself, how do we talk about in our shastra is that what there is a Vishaya avachinna chaitanya, Pramatra avachinna chaitanya, Pramana avachinna chaitanya, all of them when they align, okay, when they become one, then only the sakshatkara happens, we say. That is the anubhava. And from that is born the cognition that pot is and I know this pot. This is how we are seeing it as two steps. So he is saying, therefore what? Gata sakshatkaratmaka anubhavat anya eva. So the pratiti is something other than the gata sakshatkara and it is anubhavajanya. It is born out of anubhava. Okay. Nacha tad pratiti anyaha kaha gata anubhava iti vachya. So now he is asking what is this gata anubhava you are saying which is other than the cognition? So if you ask that, he is saying durvachatvat tasya. It cannot be explained in words. In fact, this is a problem even for the modern people who are studying consciousness, correct? So, this has been a problem always. How do you explain your anubhava? The subjective qualia is a word which is used nowadays. Okay, QUALIA, I think, qualia. So, the subjective experience, qualia, everybody has that, but you cannot really bring it out in words. In fact, that is one of the things they talk about when we talk about artificial intelligence. Whether artificial intelligence can ever be like a conscious being. So there are two views are there. Okay. So those who say consciousness is nothing but responding to stimuli, those who look at it purely behaviorally, they say that artificial intelligence will achieve consciousness after some level of its ability to behave. If it is able to behave like a human being, then you have to assume that it is human consciousness, something like that, some people say. But then others oppose it, saying that what about this qualia, the subjective experience I have, the artificial intelligence can never have it. Therefore, artificial intelligence can never become a real conscious being and all that, because the subjective experience has to be taken into account. And even in our Shastra, there are verses, correct? Even like a sweet, what is sweetness if I ask? Even Saraswati cannot say that. Like this, there is a verse. Ikshukshira gudadhinam madhurasyantaram mahat tathapi na tad akyatum saraswatyapi shakyate. So Saraswati also cannot say within this Ikshu, Kshira, Gudha and all these things, correct? Within the sugar cane or within the sugar and whatever jaggery and all these things. Whatever sweetness is there. What is the difference between the sweetness of these things means? Even Saraswati cannot differentiate, okay? Because your subjective experience cannot be put in words. So he is saying it is Durvacha because of that, okay? So it cannot be explained in words. The Anubhava is Durvacha. But once we say this, what Purvapakshi comes back? He says, no, न च निर्विकल्पक अनुभवः एव durvachah न तु savikalpaka अनुभवः इति वाच्यम्. So he is saying, no, nirvikalpa anubhava is durvacha. Even I also accept, but not the savikalpaka anubhava. Savikalpaka anubhava you should be able to explain it, describe it, etc. You cannot say that. Na vacha. Why? Because we say dvividaha api anubhavaha durvachaha eva. Both, any anubhava is durvacha. Any subjective experience which you are having, you cannot explain it fully. Why? Because parantu nirvikalpaka anubhava vishayaha vastu cha durvacham. So in the nirvikalpaka anubhava, both the anubhava and vishaya are durvacha. They cannot be said clearly. But in savikalpaka anubhava is durvacha, but vishaya is vachya. Vishaya only we talk about. This is part, etc. Your part anubhava itself cannot be explained in words. But we can explain in words the vishaya. The jnana vishaya or the object of the cognition can be explained, but the experience of the cognition itself cannot be explained in words. That is subjective experience. So therefore, any anubhava from the subjective standpoint is durvacha only. Okay, it cannot be put in so many words. And that already we saw that even that is accepted in general. Okay. So, tacha anubhavasya dvaividhyam Vishaya Bheda Prayuktameva. So further what do we say? Why do we even differentiate between two Anubhava? Means if everything is Durvacha, how can you differentiate the Anubhava? Because if you are not even able to spell it out in so many words and describe it, how can you differentiate? Means the differentiation is with reference to the Vishaya, not with reference to the Anubhava itself. That's what he is pointing out beautifully. So he says, Anubhavasya Dvaividhyam Vishaya Bheda Prayuktameva. It is with reference to the Vishaya Bheda, not with reference to the Anubhava itself. Natu Swataha iti Durvachaha eva Anubhava. So it is not Swataha, it is Vishaya Bheda Prayukta. Therefore, any Anubhava is Durvacha. So iti Durvachaha eva Anubhavaha. Okay, further what tasya cha Anubhava tasya cha ananya avabhasyatve sati Swaitara sarva avabhasakatvam lakshanam sangachate. So based on all these things, what do we say? This anubhava itself cannot be cognized or cannot be shined upon by anything, and it is the one which shines on everything else and makes it cognized. So whatever lakshana I gave is tenable, it is proper, sangachate. You cannot poke any hole in my definition of swayam prakashatvam. It holds. Okay, then what? So once we say this, they come back again. Nanu anubhavasya uttam ghata avabhasakatvam kim ghataha iti pratiti janakatvam kim va ghataha iti pratiti vishayatva janakatvam yadva ghata iti anubhava janakatvam अथवा घट इति अनुभव विषयत्व जनकत्वम. Okay, now the Purva Pakshi is bringing in four options. Okay, you say that Gata is the one which creates the Gata avabhasakatvam, correct? That a part becomes cognized because of the anubhava or the nirvikalpaka jnana. What is that really? It is when you say that the Gata avabhasakatvam is there for this nirvikalpaka jnanam or anubhava, it is the one, it is because of the pratiti janakatvam, means because it produces the cognition, this is part, or because of the fact that it produces the object of cognitionness, I have to say, okay, pratiti vishayatvam in the part. So the part becomes an object of cognition, correct? So it produces the quality of being an object of cognition in the part. Or then he says, So these two are with reference to pratiti. Either it is directly generating the pratiti or pratiti vishayatva janakatvam. Or gata iti anubhava janakatvam. Like pot, you experience the pot, correct? So whether it is generating the pot experience or whether it is generating the quality in the pot to become an object of experience, correct? Anubhava vishayatva janakatvam. So like this, four things the Purva Pakshi takes up. Of course, for him, there is no difference between pratiti and anubhava. We are only arguing for the difference. Now he is saying, tatra pratama tritiyoyoho dvitiya chaturtayoscha na bhedaha. So for him, there is no difference between first and third and second and fourth. Because for him, pratiti and anubhava are same. Whether you say pratiti janakatvam or anubhava janakatvam, it is the same. Or whether you say pratiti vishayatva janakatvam or anubhava vishayatva janakatvam, these are all same, he is saying. Okay, there is no beda. Pratitihi eva anubhavatva, because pratiti itself is anubhava according to them. And ghata iti pratyeti ityasya ghataha iti janati iti hi arthaha. So what he is saying is, I cognize part means that is, I know the pot, correct? And I knowing the part means you are experiencing the part. So there is no difference between cognition and experience. So what are you really talking about? And further what? Anubhavasya anubhavajanakatvam ayuktamiti na prathamaha kalpaha sambhavati. So when you say pratiti janakatvam, that is out of question because anubhava cannot generate itself. Anubhavasya anubhavajanakatvam is not possible. So the out of the four, he reduced it into two. First one is not possible. Then only the second is there. Means Vishaya Janakatvam. Pratiti Vishaya Janakatvam or Anubhava Vishaya Janakatvam. Dvitiyaha Kalpaha Parishishtaha Sachana Upapattite. Even that whatever the left out second option, that also is not tenable, it is not proper. Why? He is saying Gatasya Sarvadapi Vishayatvam Asti Eva iti Kada Chitka Janakatva Yogaditi. What he is saying is an object like Ghata always has this dharma according to them, this quality of being an object of cognition. It need not be generated by anything. Okay. So the Vishayatvam Sarvadapi Asti, he says. So always this Vishayatvam is there. Okay, Pratiti Vishayatvam or Anubhava Vishayatvam is always there in the Ghata. And it need not be generated at any point in time. Radha Chitka Janakatva Yoga, it cannot be generated if it is already there. So whatever you say is all, your definition does not hold good. That is what he is saying. A very big Purva Paksha. If you say this, what we are now explaining, all these four things are possible. Okay, why he is saying pratitihi vyavahara shabda prayoga lakshanaha iti. So what do we say as pratiti is the cognition is characterized by the fact that you can do transaction using words, you can describe using words. Okay, Shabda Vyavahara. So the Vyavahara where you are able to use words should be possible. Then only we say it is Pratiti or cognition. And na Pratiti Anubhaviyoho eva Anubhaviyoho Aikyam. Okay, so it is not, this printing was not very clear. So therefore what we say is this Anubhava Prayoga Lakshana, once we say Pratiti is, sorry, not Anubhava Prayoga, sorry, Vyavahara Shabda Prayoga Lakshana is Pratiti, like that once we define. We cannot say that Pratiti and Anubhava are same. They are not same. They are not identical. Okay. So what he further explains that he says, Yadyapi Swa Anubhava Samaye na Sabda Prayogaha Para Upadesha Samaye hi Saha. So even though you experience something and you cognize something, there may not be Shabda Prayoga externally. But if you are explaining it to somebody, like this is part, of course, there is Shabda Prayoga is there. So Shabda Prayoga Lakshana Vyavahara is there. Okay, so the Purva Pakshi can raise a objection saying, if you just cognize it yourself, where is the Shabda Prayoga there? Where is the Shabda Prayoga Lakshana Vyavahara? Means here, even when you don't explicitly explain it to anybody else also, Shabda is used in your own understanding. That's what he is going to get at now. So there is a Sukshma, even though it is not Vyakta, but it is still there. So Tathapi Manasikaha Sukshma Shabda Prayogaha Swanubhava Samaye Api Astyeva Iti Bodhyam. So even though we do not explain it something, once you cognize something, you need not explain it to anybody using words. But in your own understanding, still you have to use words. That's what he is saying. So that is still there. In your own mind, you understand it only through words. And therefore, that itself counts as a pratiti with Shabda Prayoga Vyavahara. Okay. Even though you may not verbalize it and talk out loudly, you still verbalize it in your own understanding, in your mind. Okay. So mentally, you still use words to understand it, your anubhava. So, swanubhava samayepi atti, he says. So even when you are just cognizing something without explaining it to anybody else also, mentally you are still using words to understand it. That is what we call cognition. And that is different from anubhava. So, tad janakatvam anubhavasya asti. So that this cognition is born out of experience, because the cognition here is in terms of words, understanding through words, and that is born through the anubhava. Therefore, prathama kalpasya na dushtatvam, he says. So the first question you asked, whether pratiti janakatvam or anubhava janakatvam can be there, means pratiti janakatvam is there. There is no problem with that. First question is fine. Anubhava as pratiti janakatvam. Okay, the second one, pratiti vishayatva janakatvam. Okay, so that also he says, napi dvitiyasya anubhutaha eva gataha iti vyavahara vishayatvam apadyate iti. The next thing is, you said that gata always has vishayatva. That is also not true. Only the gata which is experienced has vishayatvam. Okay, so anubhutaha eva gataha iti vyavahara vishayatvam apadyate. So the pratiti vishayatvam is, it should be shabda vyavahara yogyatvam has to be there. That comes only when you experience it. Unexperienced part, you cannot do any shabda vyavahara with that. Therefore, second one also is proper, he says. Okay, so vyavahara vishayatvam apadyate iti. So gataha iti vyavahara vishayatva janakatvam anubhavasya asti eva. So the second also is there for anubhava. It generates the pratiti vishayatva also. Okay, pratiti vishayatva janakatvam also is there for anubhava. Second question also is yes, answered, and it is proper. Third, okay, gata anubhava janakatvam you said. Tritiyaha api samichinaha eva, he says. Third also is proper. Fine. Why? Kevalasya anubhavasya gata iti anubhava janakatva satva. Because now we are differentiating nirvikalpa and savikalpaka. So the kevala anubhava generates a vishesha anubhava. Okay. The vishesha anubhava or savikalpaka anubhava is generated from just anubhava, which is nirvikalpaka or nirupadika. Therefore, third also is proper, he is saying. Okay. So he is explaining that nirupadikam hi jnanam. Jnanam is nirupadika, nyaptihi. Sopadika jnana janakam gataha iti anubhavascha. So when you have a anubhava of ghata, that is sopadika anubhava, that is also there or generated, or it is possible only because of the nirupadika jnana which is always there. So sopadika jnana janakam gataha iti anubhavascha gata upadikaha iti. So it is because of the gata upadi, and it is also because of the jnanam which is manifest in the gata upadi. Therefore, that is also generated only. And fourth also is yukta. Chaturtaha api yuktaha eva samanya anubhava vishayatve satyapi ghatasya sarvada na vishesha anubhava vishayatvam sarvada asti kintu chakshuhu ghata sanyogat sanyoga sanyoga dashayam eva ghataha iti. So what we say is the fourth one, anubhava vishayatvam, also is generated. Why? Because this ghata may have samanya anubhava vishayatva, but the vishesha anubhava vishayatvam is not there always, we say. That is there only when this indriyartha sannikarsha happens. Okay. So otherwise you know that some vastu is there, that's all. But to know that it is a ghata, there has to be indriyartha sannikarsha. Only when the indriyartha sannikarsha takes place, you know that it is a ghata, it is a specific object, correct? For specific knowledge and specific experience, it has to be generated, okay, through pramana vyapara. That's what we say. Only when the pramana vyapara is there, the vishesha pratiti or vishesha anubhava janya is happening. So there is no problem in that also. Okay. So therefore, what iti? So sakshur gata sayoga dashayam eva gata iti vishesha anubhava vishayatvam gatasya is there. Vishesha anubhava vishayatvam also is janya, and the samanya anubhava or jnanam, nirupadika jnanam is the janaka for that also. So therefore, all four akshepas in the form of question you raised, they are all dismissed. All of those questions, for all of those questions, yes, we give the answer. It is there, it is possible. So such a samanya anubhavaha sakshi chaitanyam. So that samanya anubhava is what we call sakshi chaitanya. Okay. And the vishesha anubhava will be the sakshya akara vritti jnana, correct? Okay. Or that sakshya again vishesha sakshya means we say there is a subject and object, correct? The subject being a subject is the samanya anubhava. Or he is also giving one more option. Yadva sakshya akara vritti jnanam. Even if you want to talk about a nirvikalpaka anubhava or samanya anubhava with reference to the object, an object being an object in general can be called as samanya anubhava. Object being a particular object is the whatever anubhava, vishesha anubhava we are talking about, as opposed to the samanya anubhava. So these things are all there. So once we start this, the Purva Pakshi is raising one more objection. He is saying, Nacha sakshya akara vrittau satyam sakshi sakshatkarena sarvasyapi ayatna siddhaha mokshaha iti vachyam. Okay, now he is saying this sakshya akara vritti, if it is there, okay, because of the sakshi sakshatkara, then everybody will get moksha, he is saying, easily. Okay. Because when the sakshya akara vritti is there, sakshi chaitanya also will be known, and knowing oneself as the sakshi chaitanya itself is moksha or the swarupa chaitanya. Therefore, everybody will get this moksha without any yatna. So once we say this, we say no. For that proper pramana janya vritti has to be there. Just because any vritti is there and the subject object is there, you will not know the swarupa of the subject, correct? So now he is making a difference between pramana and bhranti. So he is saying pramana janya sakshyakara vrittya eva sakshya avaraka ajnana nivritti dwara sakshi sakshatkaraha iti niyama. So what we are saying is the sakshi sakshatkara, if you call that as moksha, and that sakshi sakshatkara is there all the time whenever any vritti of a sakshya or an object takes place, means everybody will get moksha by any jnanam. In fact, the Kenopanishad says that. It says pratibodha vidita matam amritatvam hi vindate and all that. So bodham prati, in each and every cognition, that which is there invariably, but that is not recognized, correct? For that again you require a shabda pramana janya vritti with which we recognize that. So unless that is there, there is only Brahma is there. There is Ajnana is there with reference to that. So therefore, you cannot say automatically everybody gets Sakshi Sakshatkara because the Ajnana is there still with reference to the Swarupa of the Sakshi. And then because of that Ajnana, you take yourself as whatever is really Sakshya is taken as a Sakshi, correct? Like the Antarakarana are taken as Atma. So the Anatma is taken as the Atma, wrong identity is there, because of which only the entire samsara is there. So like this, it is going. Okay, the rest of the things we'll see in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
ధన్యవాదాలు గురుజీ.
Om.